We are missing Jay today.
Sorry, what did you say, Nazir?
We are missing Jay today to remind you about the
I
recording.
know. Jay's away for this week and will hopefully be back next week. And Dorothy has 2 respondents. That's exciting. Wonderful.
Yeah, we need to go to Dorothy's house to learn us how she is doing this nice job, right?
Yes,
Everyone
of
is
course.
invited.
Yeah.
Everyone is invited, okay?
Oh, that's nice of you, Nazir, to invite everyone to Dorothy's house. That's hilarious. Yeah, very nice. So what about others? She'll bake bread. That is fine for me. That's a great idea. So what about others in terms of in terms of your research? So an exciting thing that happened could be that I approved your research. That is also an exciting thing. Sometimes it's a lot of back and forths to make sure that it happens. So that's an exciting thing as well. Does anyone else want to talk about what they're excited about their research?
I'm excited. Mine's going to be a little bit easier than what I kind of so I had to for those who don't know, I had to sorry, my daughter's TV, just there we go. I had to switch my research, so I had to, like, I guess, almost start over. But the topic that I've chosen is actually aligned with my new role that I'll be starting next week. So it will support the work that I'm doing, and it's a lot easier. There's like no interviews and stuff, so it'll be a lot quicker process for me, and I won't be as stressed out working full-time and going to school full-time and having my 3 lovely gems here. So it's a lot less stressful.
Great, Michelle, I'm so thrilled, and I look forward to I was able to look at some of the work that Michelle has been working on in terms of, and I'm glad that it's turning out to be a good change. Sometimes when something happens with research, you have a plan, and then it's kind of something happens and you're not able to do what you intended to do. And so I have the utmost respect for anyone who is able to go back and pick up the threads that work and unweave the ones that weren't there to make something new. And so congratulations, Michelle. A number of you have had some level of that as from the beginning. So you started off with all sorts of ideas about what you would do, and it changed a little bit. And sometimes that was changing place, sometimes that was changing direction, and that is really part of the process, right? Like, so it is definitely something that is very common in research. And today we're going to talk a little bit, no one signed up for reading groups today, but we're going to have an opportunity to kind of talk about some of these things, about what happens when when things don't go exactly as planned. So, and that can happen, right? So that can happen at any point during your research. It could happen during your recruitment. I had a message from a student yesterday saying, Bethany, can we please meet, because I've had my stuff up for a week and I haven't heard anything from anyone, and I don't have any respondents yet. And so I've been doing some thinking, and I'm wondering, can I change from just being focused on Halton to actually being focused on Ontario? And is it possible for me to just redefine some of my terms so that people understand them better? And how do you think I answered that student?
Well, absolutely, because then they have to move to the next part. So in order to move to the next part, you're going to have to be successful in your research, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely, Michelle. And so what the process is, and that was really what I was getting at, is if you find yourself in the position where now I hope that all of you get fantastic, do fantastic recruitment and make all of the connections that you need to make. experience tells me that in fact, it doesn't work that way lots of the time. So you start off and you get something, but then you need to strategize a little bit if you're not getting as many responses as you wanted to get. So for this students, they changed things over and expanded it to Ontario, and she redefined some of her terms. And then she sent me a little note saying, I'd like to amend the following things in my research, and here is why. And then I just put that in her folder, and she's able to, and she's already got one respondent, right? So she really thought through, how might this work? There were other students who, another example that I gave, so let me just see, for people who are here, Delapo is doing some really exciting research. Delapo, do you want to talk about your research?
Yeah, sure. So I'm
Great.
going to be doing research on Black entrepreneurs within Peel. I'm going to be doing interviews, and I'm going to be working with Sheridan Edge, and they work with a lot of minority entrepreneurs in Peel. So I'm hoping that they will be able to give me some participants for that.
Fantastic, Delapo. So what I would say, so Delapo, so I also hope with Delapo that like that she makes really great connections with Sheridan Edge and with Black entrepreneurs. Now, if Delapo didn't get as many respondents as she wanted, she could change some things up. One thing that she couldn't change up is the fact that she is focusing on Black entrepreneurs, because her entire research is founded on looking at Black entrepreneurs and the particular things that they experience, challenges, barriers that they experience. And so, however, if Delapo wanted, she could say, Bethany, I'm not getting enough people from Peel. Could I open it up to a couple of other regions? Or could I open it up to Ontario? And that would absolutely be the kind of request that she could make. And that's no problem. Say Delapo had decided not to use LinkedIn. And she thought, well, maybe if I actually post some things on LinkedIn, I might get some responses. And so then she would just say, I've done my recruitment, my rationale for changing this is to actually use LinkedIn as one of my recruitment techniques. So all of these things are possible, and it's no problem at all. But one of the things I want to make sure that you're not leaving today without having a plan for what might happen if you experience a particular challenge. So it's helpful to actually talk through this. And so Michelle is already saying that she knows some folks who are Black entrepreneurs, Delapo, but not in the Peel region. So I had some responses from some of the people that the Center for Elder Research sent out to people that were connected to them. And they said, well, I have lots of things to say about this and this, but I don't live in Halton region, or I don't live in Peel region. And so what I instructed people to do is, please reach out to that student, let them know that you'd like to participate, but you're in a different region. And it's possible that at some point during their research, there may be some amendments that are made, but like, so you may hear from someone, because that's what I want to do. I want you to be aware of what the possibilities are, so that you can make decisions about how you move forward. Yeah, Dorothy.
Sorry, did I hear that right? Okay, so Delapo's looking for Black entrepreneurs, and it's been expanded to all of Ontario?
No. So
Okay, sorry.
So Delapo is concentrating on Peel region. And there was a very good reason for why that happened, because it's because Edge is situated in Peel region. However, what I said is, and I'm not saying that, I was just using it as an example, that if Delapo did not get enough people recruited, she needs to ask herself the question, do I talk to less people, or do I make a small amendment and expand it to York region and Halton region as well? Or do I extend it to the GTA? So Delapo could make that choice if she wanted, if at some point she recognizes that she is going to need to shift things a little bit in order to find respondents to her, to participate in her research. Does that make sense? So this is just kind of thinking through. We never want to be in a position where we don't have the right number of people to participate. However, sometimes we find ourselves in that position. And so what I want you to be, without jinxing yourself and thinking, oh my gosh, if I talk about what I would do, what will happen when maybe I won't be able to do this work. But it can be helpful to just kind of think through what would happen if I didn't get enough people. How many people is enough people for me? So I said that I was going to talk to 20 to 25 people. But what if I don't get 20 to 25 people? Does that make sense? So asking yourself some of these questions can make it feel less stressful when you find yourself in a position where you need to make some changes in order to go forward. So for example, Sumaya and Sukhman, can you tell people about your research, Sumaya and Sukhman?
Yeah, sure. We are working on international student and wellness. Like in our research, we are particularly working in Ontario regarding international students and looking for resources which we can provide them for their better mental health. And that about our researches.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sukhman and Sumaya. So then what would happen, Sukhman and Sumaya, if you found yourselves without enough research participants?
If we didn't have enough participants in our research?
Yeah. What would you do? What might be one of your options?
I think my option would be that to put it in the Sheridan College. We have a lot of students over there, like probably because it's most international student also. Yeah, and especially with the Brampton campus, if we can put it somewhere, the survey.
So like the QR code that you created. Yeah, you know what, Sumaya, that would be a great thing to do, and absolutely. Is
that allowed to share it and like put it somewhere?
Sure, you couldn't get them to fill out a survey that you just leave lying out, but for promotion periods, you know, like on tables in the learning commons, that would absolutely be something that you could do.
Or we can find our like friends or something who had past experience being international student.
Right, 100%. Yeah, so just to make sure that if you don't, so you've got, so Michelle, the research is access to mental health for international students. Mental health resources, sorry. And actually, Rebecca is doing similar research. And so you may even decide, so Rebecca, when you think about your research, what are some of your strategies around recruitments?
I want to say like people who have like a lot of experience on the topic that I'm researching specifically, simply because I feel like I can get some actual good insight, even for myself, right? Sometimes information that I may perhaps not aware of. Yeah. So those are possibly one of the first that comes to mind, because especially when it comes to recruiting people, you want people to know what you're researching on, and you want people to primarily have a lot of experience.
Yeah. And so Rebecca, remind me, are you posting on LinkedIn?
No, I haven't yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have
So
to
that's
update
great.
things.
That's part of your strategy.
Yeah, so those are part of my first strategies because I can get some awareness and perhaps somebody new who's very interested in the topic that I'm doing.
Great. Wonderful, Rebecca. Now, Andrea has had something exciting happen in terms of a respondent. Andrea, have you checked your email in the last couple of days? Are you there, Andrea? I feel like you're there because I see you looking at me through your picture. But so I didn't mean to chase you away, Andrea. But what Andrea was one of the students who the Center for Elder Research reached out to see about the research that Lee and Andrea were doing. So there's some great things that are happening just in terms of getting it out there. Mustafa and Shatta and Gofrain are doing some more work with do you want to talk about the work that you're doing for your colleagues?
Yeah, we just talking. It's about or made it our research. It's about international student and housing. So we have it, reflections between this and this. So what are the problems for a student for a student to afford its good houses, or it will be some factors like, for example, let's say the how far it from the university and money and all of this. So this is one factor, and also we talk it's about talk about it it's fees for international students comparing with housing. So, and I think its conclusion it will be like it's a big problem for international students for housing in Canada. They have a lot of
Yes,
problems.
yes,
They
Mustafa. There was an
be
interesting article in the Toronto Star this week about international students and housing. So you may
Yeah.
want to even just check that out, just around some other, just raising the issue. And so that would be something that would be really interesting for you to include when you are actually presenting your research as well.
I just want to give another idea though. My son goes to UBC, right? So that's domestic technically, but he still lives like an international student because it's not local.
Yeah.
So I never
Well,
really
student housing in general is definitely an issue.
Yeah. So is that a survey or like a interview are you doing, Mustafa?
No, we make it interview. Yeah.
You have a survey. You got a survey. Yeah.
Yes, survey. Yeah.
Interviews would be tricky. I don't think you'll have trouble finding participants. And using some of the strategies even that Sukhman and Sumaya have suggested just around just even leaving a QR code and talking to international students in some of the spaces at Sheridan. One thing that you could include, so you are not specifically looking at domestic students who are living out of province, but you could also comment on the fact that, you heard a number of things that student housing in general is an issue, and that housing in general is an issue. And it would be valuable to really assess needs across Canada. But I think you're right. In all cases, you're going to find that there are big issues. I
was just thinking, like, if it was a survey, I could, Mustafa, you could share it with me and I could share it with my son, because there's other children. I guess he's a grown-ass adult.
Everyone's a child of someone.
And there's other kids that he's went to UBC with, so that would be interesting too, to see the inter-domestic, right? Like, I don't know what you would call it, but like the what happens internally, but not just, I don't know if you're doing just Peel or whatever, but that's something I can do if you want, like help with. Or whatever.
We are doing Ontario, so that would be helpful for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. So
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you,
you're
Chef.
saying Ontario?
Yeah,
you're doing
Ontario.
Ontario. They're out in your old stomping grounds, Sukhman, in BC.
In BC, yeah.
Okay.
It is interesting. Now, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is, if you'd like your classmates to share your survey link, if you would like me to share your survey with different people, would be to write a little recruitment email and send it to your classmates and send it to me, and then I will forward it. So I'm happy to forward it to this Sheridan Student Union. I'm happy. So for Nazir and Mustafa and Sukhman and Rebecca, who are all looking at international students, Nazir's looking at employments, and looking at, in fact, the relationship between employment, like if you were an international student who had the opportunity to work during your diploma or degree, was that helpful for you after you finished? Like, did it help you? Like, what were the benefits to actually having work experience in Canada while you were in school? And so, yeah, Nazir.
Yes, Dr. Besanikan, I have a question. Okay, you mentioned right now we are around 3 or 4 group. We are doing almost the same question about the international.
No, you're not doing the same question. You're targeting similar students.
Yes, and this is what I mean. I want to mean. So we can, how I will say it, can we share the information between us as international student to continue with the survey? So, for example, I will collect the information, some information from Sukhman and from Mustafa, and I will add some question to my survey like this. We can continue like this, or?
Well, I think you've all got like slightly different work, but I'll tell you what, you could also, when you are thinking about, like I'm just thinking out loud, but I'd like you to continue with your surveys as they are. And I think they could go out to similar students in terms of thinking about this. Now, this would have been a great thing for us to talk about. We weren't in the same class at the time, right? So not all of you were in the same class. And so we didn't necessarily know about the research that people were doing. But I think that there might be an interesting way for all of you to work together if you wanted to, once you have your research analysis written up around knowledge mobilization. So rather than saying mental health, housing, employment, you could actually talk about you can compare your research, you can talk about international student experience, and possibly sharing that out and mobilizing knowledge would be really valuable in terms of doing that work. So that's something we could totally explore. And I love that idea, Nazir.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe it will be next step when we receive some answers.
Right,
or something.
right. Yeah, and so like you could do some really interesting work, because I do think that if you had a survey that had all of these different questions in it, it would be an overwhelming survey for someone to finish. Each of your surveys is 10 to 15 minutes long, 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And so, I think that you're not going to necessarily connect with the same students. Yeah, but
No,
this
it's
is
very, very hard also to connect with the same people, because when I'm sharing probably through LinkedIn, I have a different connection with me over here. And especially when I was like taking my SSW, I had another students with me was like they were international. So I will be reaching out to them like through the WhatsApp. So probably it will be very, very like hard. It's a lot of international student around us.
Yeah, no, so Samaya, that's a very good point. And here's something that's interesting. If you were to do some work around knowledge mobilization together, you could actually talk about, like you could actually pull together your research in an interesting way and look at how you might connect it, but looking at which students you did connect with, right? because you're going to have demographic information about all of these students. And and we can talk about this in the future, but your recruitment should stay the same. And I would be very happy for any of you where it would be helpful for me to send out information. So Delapo, like Dorothy, I'm really happy to send out your research and Sophie's research. Sophie, do you want to tell people about your research?
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm doing research on how the caregiver perspective on how high technology help them to take care of seniors.
Yeah, and you had some exciting news today, didn't you?
Oh yes, I'm lucky. I work at the Senior Life Enhancement Center, and the supervisor there, they are very helpful because because pandemic, right? For 2.5 years, the seniors cannot came to the center, so they developed the virtual platform. And even right now, the virtual platform still working, and then it's good for everyone, even for the center, to know how this virtual program help the caregiver taking care of the seniors, especially during the pandemic. So they are very helpful. I'm going to put the virtual program in my research project because that's one of the high technology developed to deal with difficult times. So that's one of my part of it. That's why they agreed to help me. So for me, it's a bit easier. I don't have to go public because the center has over 60 seniors, and half of them have the cognition impairment. So they all might be targeted. Yeah, but like only 1/4 of these clients, they have the caregiver come to the center to pick them up, because most of them are picked up by public transit. So I don't have chance to meet every caregiver. So I start with the caregivers who come to the center to pick up the seniors, and I can talk to them face to face. So far, I already got 4 caregivers to agree to help me. So I provide the informed consent form to them already. And Saturday, I gave the consent form and the interview guide in the morning. And when the caregiver pick up seniors at the end of the day, she actually spent half an hour with me. So I finished my first interview.
Oh, Sophie, yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, I feel a little, it's pretty good for me, because at the beginning stage, I can sort out the information, and then yeah, it's really helpful for me to develop the further, because I have the interview guide, but still some details.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we call open-ended interviews, right? So that you're not, so you learn every single time, and you can develop, you're getting a round of applause from Nazir. And Sophie had to get permission from her organization to actually connect with caregivers. So she had to go through an extra I guess barrier or an extra challenge. So she had to get ethics approval on a more informal level from her organization. So that is very exciting. Did anyone have a chance to look at Sophie's recruitment video?
Oh, that's
So no. Sophie did a video, and Julia Begree also did a recruitment video, and I thought it was really creative, and yeah, like it was fantastic. So it was a very warm video. So thanks for trying something new, Sophie.
Because you asked if somebody tried.
Yeah. No, it was just, yeah.
But they really hesitate to post it, but yeah. Thank you
Well,
for the encouragement.
way to be brave, Sophie. Like that was very creative. I really liked it for sure.
Thank you.
And who am I? Oh,
I
Andrea.
sorry,
Yeah.
Bethany, I have a question
Yeah,
regarding
sure,
the
Shanta.
research. Our research, during the research, I note that student suffered from not knowing the real conditions for international student. Can we ask, like, not for student, can we add like a question? It's the responsibilities of university or college to provide information to international student?
So, Shata, that's such a good question, but this is where you get into difficulty, right? So something that you're going to find out that as you go through the research process, your questions are around housing. And so
Yes.
the question that you're asking is outside of the scope of your actual research. Do I think that it would be good for someone to do research like this? Yes. But unfortunately, it's not something that's within the scope of your research. But Shata, when you get to your discussion parts of writing up your research, one of the things that you would include in there is areas for further investigation. And so you could include that as in, we really feel that people should do more research in this particular area. And so that's where you could include it. But thanks for asking. Like it is tricky. So Sophie can change her research questions when she's doing open-ended interviews. So she doesn't change the direction, but she can change some of the language. She can ask an extra question because it's an open-ended interviews, and that's what she proposed. Unfortunately, surveys need to stick to what we've had in terms of being work that is proposed. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I need more question. Can we like create a website or something, but official? Just present all information about housing, how much rent, and blah blah blah. Everything's like regarding international student, just but official. Like, can any international student depend on this website? Can we create like this?
So
depend what the result we get it.
So
what the gaps between.
So what you're talking about, like this is great. I'm just thinking, so for Zana and I, for one of the research, so as one of the outputs of for one of our research projects, the first research project actually that we worked on at Sheridan College. And at the time, we created a website. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm going to show you just to give an example of knowledge mobilization, because I think it's helpful to think about. We're not quite there yet, but it is as you're thinking about these things. So the research that Farzana and I did was actually youth at risk. So we looked at youth at risk in Halton region. And Farzana and I had all sorts of ideas about what that might look like in terms of sharing the information or disseminating the information, or what we would call knowledge mobilization. So if you look at this here, if I put youth at risk in Halton region, you will actually find that the report that Farzana and I wrote comes up many different times because it's one of the only reports that has been written about youth at risk in Halton region. That was their language, not ours, but because we were doing this research for Halton region. Now, The other thing that we did is we hired some interaction design students to design a website for us that had an interactive map on it. And it was a great website. We worked so hard at putting it together. Now, ask me, if you asked me about that website now, do you know what I would say to you? I would say, I don't even remember where that website is. Now, this was 7 years ago. So we provided it. It wasn't something that we had to do, but it was something that was part of what we wanted to do. Do you know why that website stopped existing? Anyone want to guess? No, because Prasanna and I are very irresponsible.
It
Maybe.
didn't have any consent, like the consent or like the like.
We did have consent, but the issue was actually something that affects all research and all social service agencies, and it was funding. So we had to purchase. We purchased a web service, and we purchased some professional Wix website, and we purchased a domain. But all of those things needed money. But the research money was only for 1 year. And so once that was over, and we also had trouble with the website. So the map something would happen with the map. And since Prasanna and I are pretty amazing people, but we are not pretty amazing computer geniuses to create web contents. And so that particular thing ended up being a problem in terms of how that information was available. So Shata, do I think that a website is a wonderful idea? Yes. However, the report is and that kind of stagnant report that isn't interactive is the report that has been accessed over and over again over the last 7 years. I think that if an institution like Sheridan College or the University of Toronto or Toronto Metropolitan University has a particular website, or an organization that is specifically working with international students has a website that they keep updating, then that would be something that was very useful in terms of knowledge mobilization. But what I have learned is that you have to have resources. So that could be just people resources, you have to have a skill set, and you have to have funding to be able to have something like a website keep going. Does that make sense? Shata?
Yes, yes, yes.
It does
yes,
make
thank
sense.
you. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
But I love your idea. And do I think that we need to be doing things for all of the groups that you are talking about? And sometimes do I sometimes feel like it is overwhelming when you find out information in the research that you're doing, and you discover the needs, then you feel very much like, I want to make changes happen.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Go
So,
ahead,
not just like international student. For example, if some student from Mississauga go to Windsor or to go up, same, not information exactly what how cost this student, and we should provide all this information to make like very easy or flexible. Can you people moved this place on this place?
You know what? I totally agree with you, Shata. I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the things that Michelle was talking about as well, that her son and his friends really had trouble in moving from Hamilton to UBC in Vancouver, that has some of the highest housing rates and housing costs in Canada
exactly.
or in North America, right?
Yeah,
So it's definitely, there is definitely a theme here around housing. Nazir.
Yeah, Doctor, I want to add to Shaza, because while we went with the placement in SSW. We made the placement at that time, at the COVID time, online, right? And we create such a, what you name it, we name it first year international help circle. And the professor, she added to Slate even, and we can contact directly the students there and to help them whatever is the help need. And she divide us. I will help with the translation to Arabic. The other student will help with communication with professors, whatever they need. So such an idea, it's right now available in Sheridan, or we can't create it anymore?
So Nazir, I don't know. During COVID, I wasn't working with I wasn't working with the SSW program. I was in a central unit at Sheridan. So I was kind of not privy to some of the conversations that happened. It sounds like if you can tell me a professor's name, I can follow up for you if you want.
Well, it was a placement professor.
Karen.
Helen is the supervisor, right, Michelle? But
yeah, sure.
After Helen, she provide us with another professor. She just finished her PhD here in Windsor, and I forget her name. I'm so sorry. I'm old man, right?
No, that's okay. I'll follow up. I'll follow up with Karen. No problem.
Yeah, we can even. I forget it. I can't help with
No, that's fine, Nazir. And this is a great example of looking at the communities that you're involved in, the things that you've learned, all of those different things, and thinking about how you might make connections, right? And this is why our communities are really important.
If you like, Doctor, even if you like, I have the report which you provided to us at the end of the placement, so I can search it and share it with you if I find it.
That's great. Yeah, I'd love to see it for sure. So refugees so Michelle, good question. Are refugees included with international students? They would only be included with international students if they were enrolled in an educational institute. So that could be even learning English, right? Like if that was something that, but the only difference is longer term housing. Yeah, so they certainly have precarious status in a similar way, but refugees have, dependent on if someone is an official refugee or if they are someone who's a refugee claimant versus an international student, all of those groups have a set amount of time frame that they are legal. And please note that I'm using my fingers to say legal in Canada, because we do have this framework of who is legal and who is illegal, right? So if you have a visa, then you are legal. You're always a person, but we have this differentiation that we make within our government systems around some of those groups of people. But Michelle, they absolutely face similar situations.
No, I'm saying in regards to the research, would that be like a total different research? Because the thing is,
it would be totally different research.
Okay.
To talk about. No, that's okay. That's all right. Like I've done a lot of work with refugees and with people who are refugee claimants around housing, around experiences of violence, and it would actually be more, it would not be considered minimal risk to work with someone who's a refugee claimant. If someone was, and even a refugee would, depending on what you were talking about, you would have to be really careful. Whereas an international student has a legal status and presumably, as ethics think about it, that they have not experienced. So someone who's a refugee has been forced into migration, and someone who's an international student has made a choice to now, someone like Nazir came to Canada with one status and continued with another status, right? And can live in both worlds. He still continues to be a refugee. But as soon as someone is in school and attending school, then the minimal risk then they would be considered a minimal risk as opposed to having more risk, because somehow education is connected to stability. Which
I was just thinking, because the new ED of Wesley, he's actually a really amazing person. So he actually came through as a refugee.
Nice.
And then he attended school. He has his master's. He's got a great story. He was a refugee from Afghanistan. But so I was thinking, like, what if somebody, like, what's the difference between the international, because the international students, you're only here on a student visa, which means after that you would have to apply for something else to stay, or you would be going home, whereas a refugee can't go home, right?
Can't go home. You're right. And there is a movement from people being international students to being refugees as well, right? So you have a couple of options when you're heading into, like, so if you are an international student and you can stay and you can apply for jobs and you can apply for a PR card, but if you don't receive those things, you have a choice either to return home or to decide to stay, but to be, once again, illegal, which is in quotation marks, but illegal, but considered illegal by the Ontario, and the federal governments. But you're right, there's all sorts of movement within those things, within those different categories, and all of them lead to different vulnerabilities as well. If you are a student versus an international student versus a refugee or an immigrant, but someone who is an international student could also have vulnerability, and someone who's an immigrant could still have experienced violence, but they're just different categories. And for all of those groups, the idea of housing can be a very challenging thing, very complex. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one day I will have a research team, or maybe one day Michelle will have a research team, or Shata will have a research team that is looking in a really in-depth way at housing and looking at housing solutions as well. I know that Michelle, one of your dreams is to create a housing organization and to create affordable, supportive housing. And that's exciting. I will join your research team, Michelle, because you are going to be changing the world with the things that you're contributing to it. And so I'll be a retired professor, and I will come and be a volunteer researcher for you.
It's a no housing, solutions.
There are no housing solutions?
Yeah, in next 10 years, no houses. You just need to build, homes, to build homes.
You don't need to build the homes. They need to fix the ones that we have. There's a lot of empty, vacant buildings that they can just go into and spend the money instead of building new homes and fixing those up and then renting them out at affordable prices.
Right. Yeah.
Now Canada's one is of 6, it's countries. It's expensive countries in homes, so I think it's fifth one or something. Yeah.
It is
crazy. Yeah.
It is very expensive, but there are lots of wasted spaces, and let's just say, so I'm going to, just before we go on a little break, one thing that I will say is I actually am very hopeful for the first time in a long time. Anyone know what happened around the green belts this week?
Oh, I know what happened, but don't get me started on it. I'm really happy that it happened, but there's other issues that have been prolonged that have been going on that could have been resolved very easily as the green belt, because I felt like it was much easier than like land back, let's say. So that's
I know. So Michelle, there are all sorts of issues around but this is because it is less complicated and less people were involved. I think that it happened like when you have a premier that has a bunch of buddies that he wants to give land to develop, and he got caught in that, and people were really protested, but it was a hopeful thing that happened. But because some, like you said, Michelle, some of the other issues like around land back, that issue is makes a lot of sense.
It's practically the same issue.
It
It's
is.
the
No, it
very
is.
same issue.
100%.
So I'm like, this is ridiculous, because like I understand there was a lot more people that were, you know, personally invested, I guess, into the green belt, but like land back is the very exact same thing. It's
You are
just
right.
involving a different group of people, and it just goes to show you how, you know, marginalized it, or I don't even like that word, but like how different society treats other members.
Systemically excluded people.
Yeah.
Then the focus is on the system. And you know, I agree. I absolutely agree. And this involved people not wanting, like, there are all sorts of issues that exist around this. And I hope that in your policy class, like I want to make sure that we're answering any research questions before we start. So we're going to take a little break. But I hope that, and I'm going to put this on pause. Incredible. I'm going to turn the recording back on, but you're in an incredible position to actually know all of these things, right? I always think that I want to be aware of what's going on, but you know some of the background and some of the structural pieces that have impacted the price of groceries or the price of housing. And that's one of the things that I think that is integrated into this program is as a deeper understanding of how those things come together. And we want you to be change makers in the world, and all of you have the capacity to do that. And this research really shows me that, and this discussion shows me that, in fact, it's hopeful for me as I think about the future, when there are people who care and so much about the world around them, care what other people are experiencing, and when you care and then take action on that care, exciting things can happen.
I feel like it's not enough just to identify, and that's where I think some people in social work get lost. They get very good at identifying issues, like here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem. But we need to become greater and be a part of the problem solvers and the policy makers. And that's how you solve those issues. And I know this isn't policy. I think somebody was saying at my policy class the other day about, you know, the government says a lot of stuff, but there's nothing that comes after it, or the things that come after it aren't being moved on. So, but I'm just saying, like, doing the research, understanding the problems, connecting with the people and community that you're working with, then you can actually stand up, have a voice, and then actually get funding and allocate those funds to the appropriate resources. And that's part of the solution, right? And that's part of pushing back, because them not saying we don't have, well, we have, because you've taken all our taxes and you've exhausted our community of resources. So where's this money, right? So, and I feel like every single person in this course is meant to do greater things and actually not talk out of their butt, so to speak. So I just, yeah.
Can I quote you on that, Michelle? Everyone in this course is meant to do things like not talk out of your butt. That is again, no, Michelle, that's awesome. I love it. That is well said. Absolutely. And so, yeah, you're right. We can make choices with the knowledge that we have. So it's one thing to have knowledge, one thing to become educated, but it's another thing to take action on the things that we are learning. And so we've actually covered the content of one of the readings already, just in terms of talking about strategies around around recruitment. And the one thing that I want to talk about, before I actually go to our reading, I just want to make sure we actually have our first presenters next week talking, and one of those presenters in terms of opening up one of the readings to us is a brave fellow by the name of Nazir. And he's going to be opening up for us one of the readings for week 5, and that is doing sensitive research. What challenges do qualitative researchers face? And then Andrea is going to be opening up Together in Separation, Practical Considerations for Doing Qualitative Interviews Ethically. And so because this is the first time that we've done the reading circle, I just want to remind you how this works. Does anyone remember how this works in terms of a reading circle?
Or how much I remember, Doctor, we will read it and conclude it and say the main point inside it.
Right, 100%. And then you're going to put down 2 discussion questions.
Okay, but I have a small question, Doctor, because this week I didn't try it, to be frank with you, but last week I tried to open it and doesn't open.
Okay.
But this week I didn't try it. Let me try.
Okay,
now.
so I'm just gonna, I'll just look at it right now, just so that I'm gonna make myself a student.
No, this week is open.
Bethany, I'm wondering if that's a slate issue, because this is not the only place that I'm having issues with that. I'm finding in a lot of my classes I'm having are you frozen? Can you hear me?
Am I frozen? No, I'm not frozen. Okay, so when I look for this, so it only opens up the week before. So let me just show you. So now if I share it, Nazir, this is from the student view. So this is what you should be able to see. Can you see it now? Can you see this? So these ones are closed, but these ones are open.
You mean for next week? Yeah. Yeah,
for next week, yeah.
Yeah, week 5, yeah. So 2 people, one will take it first.
So Andrea is going to do Togetherness and Separation, and Nazir is going to do sensitive research, what challenges do qualitative researchers face. But then remember that you want to be the discussants on at least 4. So that means that Nazir needs to post by the end of the day tomorrow, right? And Nazir is smiling with beautiful smiles, saying, "I can't wait to post this tomorrow."
Yeah,
and then you
right
will,
now,
So you're
right
going
now,
to answer one of the questions, whichever you choose. So Nazir's going to pose some questions, and then.
So Doctor, I'm sorry, but the problem that's meaning from my end, because right now I tried to open it again, it's not opening.
Can you share me?
Can you please share me the link which you open it from?
So what I've done already. So I've actually put what I'll do is let me go to, for a moment, let me just go to the announcements. Oh, that's last week's announcement. So let me just bring you to, sorry. I'm just going to, course outline, slate help. Oh, because I was like, why can't I actually, see it? But that's because I'm viewing it as a student. So when I look at it, I'm just going to publish an announcement, Nazir, and let's see what because I have an announcement that's drafted. I don't have the video from today on it at all. But what I will do is just, I have put the links in. One moment. Here's a behind the scenes look at what I have done. It was published as a draft, and now I'm going to publish it. And if we go back to the announcements now, The thing that's missing is Tuesday's lecture, but I'll put that in. Now I want you to go to the announcements and I want you to click on the discussion boards link. Can you do that, Nazir?
I'm trying to open it. My laptop is a little bit slow, doctor. So
yeah, sure. So I did put, so if I click on it, it brings me to the discussion.
The readings, Nazir, are actually in the weeks. So if you go to week, that reading is actually in week 3 for the for this week, I think, right? Is that what
so your reading is week 5.
So the readings are under the weeks though. So when you go under content and you go under the week, the readings in that week, you're just going to post in the discussion. The reading's not there.
Yeah, and you also, Nazir, if you go, so I'm just viewing as a student now, if you go to contents, then you will find there's a whole section on readings for the reading circle. And you can access all of those under readings for the reading circle.
yeah, I went right now to the week 5. Yeah, and I see doing a sensitive research, what challenges to
good
researchers. Yeah, and
wonderful.
I knock on it.
And Dorothy very kindly this week.
No, it's open now. Thank you so much.
No, you know
PDF, right? PDF, right?
Yeah.
It's PDF, right?
Yeah,
it's easy.
It's open.
It's easy to open. It's from contacts. Yeah. So for all
from content, yeah, it's better. Yeah,
so,
I have it already. Okay.
And Michelle, just to your comments, if you've got any issues at all with accessing anything, then please let your professors know, because even if they don't know how to fix it, then they can reach out and I can support them in fixing it. Because if you guys can't access materials, that's a problem. That I find that's a problem in that your tuition is paying for access to materials.
Yeah, so it's after Nazir will write it's tomorrow. Okay.
So yeah, Nazir, by tomorrow night at midnight.
And we will just answer to ask one question. Yeah.
So you just answer. So if you're a discussant, you can answer one question.
Yeah.
But you'll have the option of doing answering 4 questions, right? Because you will have Nazir will put 2 questions up and Andrea will put 2 questions up.
But I mean, it's if we, for example, let's answer one for Nazir and one for Andrea. So now we are two for 5.
Yes, it is true. If you do that, Mustafa, yes.
Yeah.
Are we required to do citations when we answer questions? I know when we write.
No.
Okay, fantastic.
No, it's a discussion. It's a discussion, and that's fine. So I don't require you to do citations. Now, the person who's the discussant, so Nazir, who's on the hot seat, he should refer to what he's drawing from in terms of how he's commenting and how he's summarizing. So there may be citations in that. But in terms of your discussing, if you're a discussant, you don't need to use APA.
So let me be 100%, doctor. So I will summarize it with the citation and I will put it on the discussion board with 2 questions. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I mean, any of you, if you have a question, if you're having access issues with Slate this week, then just please reach out, and I'm happy to meet with you and go through it with you, or just have you share your screen and we can figure it out.
For sure.
And you, Dorothy, thank you so much for sharing that good news. And yeah, so the one reading that I wanted us to just look at as we finish off today is actually just the pitfalls, potentials, and ethics of this one we've already really looked at, but it's actually the afterlife of interviews. And this is important to talk about in terms of qualitative research. So the afterlife of interviews, explicit ethics and subtle ethics in sensitive or distressing qualitative research. And what Leahy talks about is looking at conducting interviews about sensitive subject matter. How many of you are doing, oh, this is week 4. So Michelle, I'm just, we talked about some of the recruitment pieces for this week. And so I'm just bringing us to the other reading for this week, which is talking about how we approach the ethics of actually sharing information and how we share information. So, for example, Michelle, if you were doing research, if you were continuing to do research with residential school survivors, which was your initial group, how you would share that information, you would have a really significant process that in terms of how you would choose to share information so that others could understand, but that you were not re-traumatizing someone. So even in the interview process and in the publication of information as well. Oh, don't worry, Michelle. Yeah, that would be confusing that we're in week 4. September goes fast, and there are a lot of weeks in September this year. We started earlier than we usually do. The good news is that we end earlier before the holiday break. So that's also not a bad thing. And so what I really liked this first quote was, "I prefer my historical sources to be well and truly dead and unable to talk back." And so this is very interesting. And I mean, certainly it is intended to be humorous. Whenever we do research with humans, it becomes, there's no need for member checking them. You're so right, Dorothy. And so there is absolutely, things can often become messy as people share from their experience when you do research. And this particular research study is actually looking, it's an Australian study. And what I loved about this and why we chose this article is that I want to encourage all of you, whether you are doing interviews or whether you are doing surveys, to be ethically reflexive. And how Zabriskie talks about that is this idea that that you want to, as you are reflecting on the information that you are gathering, thinking about how you might continue to honor your research participants as you write up that research. And so you are all going to be holding different types of stories. For some of you, those stories will be stories about experiences in long-term care, or experiences as international students, experiences finding housing and seeking resources, experiences with arts-based programming and the impact of arts-based programming. But in all of those, you will hear about both the successes that people have as well as the challenges that people have had. And so that idea of being ethically reflexive is really important as you think about how you will represent what people have shared with you. And this is a fantastic article just talking about how the writer of the article conducts life history interviews. And this is really, when you're doing oral like you're doing interviews that are hearing oral histories from people, you absolutely want to ensure that you're treating it and using some of the skills that you developed from your work in frontline work and from your training as you think about the helping process. And so honoring what people are giving you. Can you think of, these are some ethical considerations at different interview stages. So we talked last week about that ethical groundwork. So this idea when you are putting together the process when you are interviewing someone, and then actually creating a space in which people feel comfortable sharing what their experiences are. So yeah, a safe space. Yeah, Michelle, absolutely. So now you start off, and many interviews are done using something like snowballing. And so, and we talked about what that looks like, right? So you have Nazir, who has a friend who is an international student, and that international student shares it with his friend, who shares it with another friend. And but there is often, by the time you end up at the end of the snowball, there is no relationship that exists between the researcher and some of the research participants. But you want to ensure that what you did was to create a friendly welcome and share that informed consent form, even though it was 3 pages long, with them, so that they are aware of the work that you have done to create that safe space. And so although this article talks a lot about interviews, I think some of the principles really can be easily applied to the work that you're doing with surveys as well. That you've already created these spaces, and how you publish that information and how you analyze it, all of that needs to be treated with ethically reflective practice. Can you think of any challenges that you might experience as you're working with your research participants? Does anyone anticipate that there might be any challenges just in terms of people feeling like they are protected in the process?
I'm doing surveys, but I can speak. Like,
no, for sure. No, that's great.
One of my other challenges where we know, even as a social worker, don't start things you can't shut down. So it's really hard to tell when somebody is on the brink. Sometimes it's hard to tell when they're on the edge and about to be pushed over. So so there's telltale signs, right? Like you can see they start to get shaky, their voice, but other people they can go 0 to 100 without even identifying anything. So that would be a huge challenge for someone to come up to, and especially if they're not used to interviewing or the therapy part of it, or the active listening part in the frontline work.
Yeah, sure.
So and if they had nobody else around there to support them and shut them down, it could be a disastrous situation.
Great, Michelle, that's fantastic. And I think that as people who are interviewing, when you do a survey, you set that up at the beginning by creating that space. Yeah, Dorothy, it could be triggering for both parties. And so you want to prepare yourself, and you want to ground yourself, and even ground, and as we talked about that conversation that happens before you start the interview, if you are doing interviews, that in and of itself can be grounding, just to be present in today and be present and where we're at, and providing a way out if your participants doesn't want to answer a question. You need to let them know ahead of time. It's okay if you don't want to answer a question, you just let me know, and we move ahead to the next question. One of the things that I gave feedback to people on this week as I was looking at their surveys was that you cannot, or you should not, require that something was actually that a question is actually answered. And so the consent form piece, in terms of giving consent or not giving consent, that can be required. But after that, if you make a question in a survey required as part of the survey, people can't move on and they have to make some kind of answer. And so that is something that you don't want to do in a survey, because it's possible that someone does not want to answer one of the questions that you have in your survey. And so you just want to ensure that everything along the way has free, ongoing consent, that people know that, in fact, if they don't want to answer a question, they don't have to answer a question. And so these are all little pieces that contribute to doing good research that is honoring of the people that you are working with. And as we start, it's going to go faster than you believe. By the time we get to reading week, you'll be in a place where you're ready to start your coding and your analysis of your work. And we'll continue to talk about the ethics of even how you represent the data that you have actually generated through your research. Any questions? Michelle, no problem. You're allowed to be distracted by your child when you are working from home. That is no problem. So
it just seems every time I turn my mic on, one of them like pops in and starts like, so then I have to like run around the house and try to find a quiet. That's why it's like I'm out of breath and sorry.
Oh gosh. That does sound like a challenge when you are sharing space with lots of people. I'm going to say that if you don't have any questions about how you are moving forward, then I'm going to invite you to move forward with my blessing. I am really happy. If you're still in a stage, Michelle, I'll get back to you just about final things. And Hannah, we're meeting tomorrow morning. And so I'm looking forward to doing both of those things. And yeah, I think everyone has the green light. If I haven't yet sent you an email about kind of giving you the green light to move forward, then just reach out to me and we can have a conversation about where you need to go and what you need to do. And without that, I would just say congratulations on making it to week 4. Michelle, good news for you. It is week 4. And you have lots more weeks left. We've got 10 weeks left of the semester for you to do the work that you need to get done. And it's actually 11 weeks when you count reading week. So you've got you are in a good space. Some people start launch their research yesterday, but then others will launch their research this week. And you are all still in the right time frame to get this work done. I am not worried at all. If you are having some challenges around recruitment this week, and you want to reach out and you want to send me a link to the poster and your survey form, I am really happy to identify places where I can send it for connections that I have to start your snowball process in another way. Yeah, Michelle.
Okay, so I have a question because Dorothy shared her lovely questionnaire on MS Forms with me, and I can go in and make changes to her document, which is messed up. I don't know.
Oh, no, but Dorothy would have given you a different link than the link that you would send out to your research participants. So Dorothy invited you to collaborate on that, on her form. So that meant that
I think when I clicked on it, when I was reading it on Paladin, it came in, it went through that way. Cause I don't think she invited me to do it. I think.
So she put a different link there so that people could collaborate on it. So, if you go, so let's just do one last thing before we.
Please. Yeah. Cause I don't
worry. No, Michelle, this is a great clarification. Absolutely. So I'm actually going to, go to your research because I just happened to have it up. I was checking to make sure I could access it. So this is what you gave to me, and I cannot, if I go here, the only thing that I can do is to disable immersive reader. I can't do anything else. But when Dorothy sent you hers, she sent you a link that was actually, or she gave you a link that was actually a different link. So let me just open up one of my Old Faithful. Let's go back to our favorite sailboat. Let's see, where is that sailboat? Sailing survey. So let's go back to our sailing survey. Let me show you it makes me a little bit dizzy. No, not really. But here's our beautiful sailing survey. What Dorothy did to give you that collaborate piece, Michelle, is she went over to these 3 dots and she clicked on it to say collaborate or duplicate. And then she clicked on the share the link, and you could share with anyone with a school account or people in Sheridan College, and she copied that link. And that's the link that she put on Padlet, but you would not do that. Instead, what you would do is you would go to collect responses. And this is the link, and you've selected anyone can respond. And then what I would do is I would go to shorten URL because it makes a very short link. You copy that link, and that link, let me put this in the chat right now. And if you click on this, you are not going to be able to collaborate on it. You are not going to be able to edit it. So you can all try it out, but that will appear as a survey that you can start. And the only thing that you can do is to disable the immersive reader.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't even do that. I shared the one underneath. I did the same.
Don't worry.
Thing, and
don't
then
worry. This is all like, you know what? We are all learning about this and how these pieces work. And so you're good. So don't worry. But you know what, Michelle? I love that you asked that question, because you don't want people to change your survey or to be able to edit your survey, because then your data is not safe.
Right. And it'll just be off. Yeah. And it again, it said share as template. So I couldn't figure out, but that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's like the easiest but hardest thing, this thing.
Right. So. Well, everything is easy, or many things are easy. If you know them. So years from now, Michelle, or probably weeks from now, you're going to be telling someone else how to use MS Forms. You'll be an expert by the time we're finished. All of you will be. All right. So
thank you. I appreciate your help.
Yeah, no problem. And I am so excited at the way you're moving forward. Please reach out if you need any support. And And I look forward to seeing you next week. In week 5.
Yeah,
All
thank you,
right.
Professor. Thank you. See you next
All
week.
right. See you next week. Take care, everyone.
Sorry, Professor, I need to send you email to set up appointment with you, or you can.
Well, I can do it right now. If you, I probably won't have an appointment with you right now, because I have been at Sheridan for many hours. However, I'm really happy we can totally make a time to meet. And so I say, have a wonderful evening, all of you, and I'm going to